Good morning and welcome to the July 25th, 2023 regular meeting of the Board of Supervisors of Calaveras County. It's 8 a.m. and we'll be going into closed session. Madam Clerk, can you please read closed session for us?
Pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, County of Calaveras versus Tiscornia Ranches Limited Partnership et al., Calaveras County Superior Court Case Number 20CV45113.
Thank you. Are there any public comments in the room on this item? Seeing none, are there any online?
There are no public comments online.
Seeing no public comments, we will go to closed session and return at 9 a.m. Good morning and welcome to the regular meeting of the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors for July 25th, 2023. If you can rise, please rise for the pledge to our flag. Supervisor Stopper, can you please lead us?
Thank you, sir. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Someone called you out on calling me out.
All right, we'll read out, have the board clerk read out from our closed session.
Item number 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, County of Calaveras versus Tiscornia Ranches Limited Partnership et al., Calaveras County Superior Court Case Number 20CV45113. There was no reportable board action.
Thank you. We will move on to staff announcements. This is a time for county staff to provide updates of upcoming county events that may be of interest to the public. And I see Lisa is here. And Lisa, you have several items to report out to us.
Just a few. Gonna fix the microphone for Shorty here. Good morning, Chair, respective board members, CAO Hitchcock, and our County Council, Lisa Medina, Environmental Management Agency. We are very excited to announce that the Environmental Management Agency has implemented a new software program with the help and collaboration of our IT staff and our colleagues called a pop-up. So when you visit any of our 5 departments under the Environmental Management Agency, you will see a message pop up on your screen with important and relevant information. For example, our Animal Services Department Kitten and Cat Foster Program is in desperate need of human foster parents. When you go to Animal Services Department Adoption and Fostering Program, you will see a pop-up that shows some adorable kittens. Everybody can see that? This automatically pops up when you tap on the fostering program. We currently have 80 cats and kittens at our shelter, and we are desperate and we're pleading with our community to go online and apply for a human foster program application. The applications are available online and they are fillable too online as well. We are reaching out to our community and invite everybody to apply for the foster program, and we look forward to seeing our community do that. For our air pollution control district, you will see a pop-up that you can click on to check your current air quality status. Looks like this. You click on the link and it will pop up and show your current air quality throughout Calaveras County. And this is broken down whether or not the AQIs, which are the air quality index, or the air quality is good moderate, unhealthy for sensitive groups, unhealthy, very unhealthy, and hazardous. And so we typically, in Calaveras County, like to see good or moderate. We are very grateful for our IT department and our coworkers from other departments who have donated their time and collaboration in efforts to make this happen. Through this collaboration, we can better serve our community and help animals we are responsible for, not only as an agency, but as a community. And that's all I have, if you don't have any questions.
Board questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other staff member have announcements in the room? Seeing none, of any online?
There are none online.
All right, we'll move forward to recognition and acknowledgements. This is a proclamation from the clerk of the Board of Supervisors to adopt a proclamation honoring Mary Ann Garamendi for her distinguished service in McCollum Hill and Calaveras County. And I will turn this over to Jack Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And full disclosure, Mary Ann Garamendi is my aunt. Maybe not that common a name, so easy to disclose. And I'd like to welcome so much of the wisdom of McCollum Hill to be in the room to join us today. Thank you very much. It's my honor to make a proclamation today recognizing and honoring Mary Ann Garamendi for her distinguished service in McCollum Hill and Calaveras County. Mary Ann, why don't you come on up here and you stand before the mass here.
Come on, Mary.
And we're going to have some public comment after I read this. Be ready to be roasted a little bit. So, whereas Mary Ann Garamendi is a fourth-generation resident of Chili Gulch in McCollum Hill, where she attended McCollum Hill Elementary and graduated from Calaveras High School in 1966. She followed her parents' footsteps and attended the University of Nevada, Reno, later moving to Oklahoma, where she raised 4 children. Mary Ann returned to Calaveras County in 1993 and began her life's work as a teacher in 1994 and retired from Mountain Oaks in 2018. And whereas Mary Ann passionately advocates for preserving our local history and educating children about it, starting California History Day in McCollum Hill in 1997. To this day, every year, over 300 fourth graders from throughout Calaveras County experience what life was like during the gold rush as a result. Additionally, as a member of the Calaveras Historical Society, she is instrumental in bringing hundreds of third graders from throughout the county to our museums in San Andreas, where they learn about our local history and explore our historical resources. Mary Ann is also the current president of the McCollum Hill History Society and the past president and member emeritus of the McCollum Hill Historical Trust. And whereas Mary Ann is dedicated to environmental education through the Upper McCollum River Watershed Authority, through the Upper McCollum River Watershed Authority, she started the Stewardship Through Education program that serves as a bridge between schools and communities to learn about our watershed. As part of her work with STE, she helped form the Aquarium Education Program that helps 600 students annually in classrooms throughout Amador and Calaveras counties raise salmon and trout from eggs to fry and release them back into the watersheds. And whereas Mary Ann is currently a commissioner on the Calaveras County Fish and Game Commission and has been a hunter education instructor for 12 years. And whereas Mary Ann is also deeply involved in her community in the Lions Club, delivering turkey in a barrel meals to homebound residents on McCollum Hill every November, and is a lifelong member of St. Andreas Parish, specifically St. Thomas Aquinas. And whereas Mary Ann believes it is very important for children to know they have roots through history, through service projects, and through love and support of community, because service gives you ownership and ownership gives you roots. Mary Ann, thank you very much. Do you have anything to say in your defense?
No, other than it's been a pleasure to do whatever I've done throughout the years in my community, and I will continue. But thank you. It's an honor, and I'm humbled by this. Thank you very much.
Is there any public comment on this item? Anybody like to make a public comment? Ms. Lodato, Ms. Brock, excuse me.
I'm Jennifer Lodato Brock, and Marianne and I grew up together. Our families were always very, very close. But you left out some important details, like she was a head cheerleader at Calaveras High School. And she was on the championship tennis team that beat Jackson after 20 years. We finally did it in 1965 or 64. 64. So anyways,
The tennis team is here.
many of her lifelong friends are here today, and on behalf of all of our friends and our family and those who are with us and those who have left us, congratulations and thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Hi, I'm Kathy Borland. Some of you, I remember you very from years and years ago. I wrote this for Mary Ann because I think it's very important that we honor our community members, you know, not when they're gone, but when they're here. It's really important for us to do that. And I don't think you understand the stuff that Mary Ann does. And it's all for kids. And it doesn't matter where that kid lives. It doesn't matter who they are. She just does it for kids because she loves it. However, there are community members who will run the other way when they see her coming because they know she's got something going on up here that she wants to do and they're going to be involved. And I've seen people literally go like this thinking, oh God, she's got something going on. She's innovative. She's wonderful. She does this all out of the goodness of her heart. We are so blessed to have her in our community. And I have learned so much. And I have been living on the ranch for 3 years and she drags me to everything that she does. And there's something going on every single month, and it's all for kids. So we are very proud of her in our community. We voted her our Grand Marshal, or like we like to say, the Queen of the McConey Hill Parade. And we enjoy having her, and I don't run from anything that she has going. So thank you all for honoring her. It's really wonderful.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Nancy?
Nancy Giddens, Calaveras County Librarian. I want to let you know that she doesn't only do historical things, she also does library things. And every time she brings the children to the museum, they come to the library to have their lunch. And she always has me come in and show the children everything that we have for children in our library. And we've signed up many, many children from Railroad Flat, McCelmy Hill. I don't know if you've got Mountain Oaks, but Valley Springs. We get to see these children every year and we have, oh, it's Mary Ann. Okay, the kids are coming. Clear out the chessboard room, set up all the tables and let the kids eat there. So not only is she a supporter of the historical things, she's also a supporter of the library. And I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we have a motion? Stop it.
Yeah, if I may say something first, sir.
Por favor.
You know, as Kathy brought up, you know, many times I'm one of those people that run the other way when Miss Garamendi walks into the room because she's, you know, great heart. She's persistent. So strongly persistent. And, you know, many times I'm like, look, that's just not the way the law works. You can't do that. And she stays on me until we find a way around that can get us to our objective and everything. You know, it's not so much that I'm pulling my hair out about figuring out the law, Mary Ann. It's because you do have the right things in your heart and everything you work towards for the community. They are good things, you know. I'm just lazy sometimes. I don't have to figure out the law and go to county council and bug them until we get our stuff done. So thank you very much for everything you do for the community.
Thank
We
you,
appreciate you.
Thank you.
With that, I'll move it.
I will second.
We have a motion by Supervisor Stopper, a second by Supervisor Toffenelli. All in favor?
Aye.
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors honors Mary Ann's dedication to education, service, and our communities, and congratulates her for being named Citizen of the Year in McCelmy Hill. Passed and adopted by the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors on this day, 25th of July, 2023. Mary Ann, congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh, I gotta come up. Oh, it doesn't?
Yeah, just because you have the problem. So.
She is persistent.
Yes. All right, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is general public comments. Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter and jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas today may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If the public comment is completed before 30 minutes allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard. Are there any public comments in the room?
My name is Lou Bumpus. I live in Mountain Ranch. I have a business in San Andreas. I have a few questions about the new garbage fees. Excuse me. Number one, is Calaveras going to pay for this increase as well? Are they going to pay a new fee?
Sir, during public comment, it's a chance for you to voice your concerns.
Okay.
Okay,
My
if you don't
concern-
answer generally, you can send it to your supervisor and get.
No problem.
Okay.
No problem. Okay, so anyways, that's one of my concerns. And my other concern is, how many people sent that letter to you? My third concern is this: if we don't pay this, what are you going to do? Because when we asked questions at this meeting, there were 17 people present. I only know that because you made comments about it. There were 17 people there, and all of them asked questions about this, and all of them were against this. And your department head said that we were paying this increase because it was good for the overall. But you had veterans there, retired veterans, who said that they couldn't afford this increase. But it was good for the overall. That's communism. These were veterans. I'm a veteran. So how is it that you pledge allegiance to the flag, which stands for democracy, but you vote for communism? And that's my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments in the room? Seeing none, we'll go to online.
There are no public comments online.
No public comments online. Okay. Seeing none, I will close public comment. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion. Is there any board member wish to pull an item from consent?
Chair, I don't wish to pull one, but I wish to recuse myself from voting on item 8.
Item 8?
Yeah.
Recused. Supervisor Hubbard. Okay, is there any staff member wish to pull an item from the consent? Is there any online?
There is none online.
Is there any public member wish to pull an item? No? Online?
Not online, no.
Thank you, Robin. All right, I'll bring it back to the board. I'm open for a motion. Remember that Supervisor Hubbard is recusing himself from item 8.
A move.
Second.
A motion by Supervisor Follendorf, a second by Supervisor Garamendi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We'll move on to our regular agenda. I'll give it a second for the room to clear. Get pretty loud out there. All right, we'll move on to our regular agenda, item number 16. This is an action item from the Clerk of the Board of Supervisors to appoint members of Calaveras County Resource Conservation District. We'll be filling 2 vacancies. So, is there any board member wish to make a suggestion on what's before us?
Barring any public comment that may change the mind, I would make a suggestion, making John Osborne the ag industry representative, and I would move that Sarah Hodson be the member 1 for the vacancy of that, barring any public comment that would change my mind.
Any other board comments on that? Hearing none, we'll go with the public. Is there any public comments on this item? None in the room. Is there any online?
There is none online.
Thank you, Robin. So we have a motion by Supervisor Stopper, a second by Supervisor Garamendi.
Garamendi will second it.
He'll second. All right, call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. Move on to item number 17. This is agreement with Human Resources. Authorize the board chair to execute a services contract with Evergreen Solutions, an LLC, in the amount not to exceed $54,500 to generate a classification and compensation study. Judy, you are here. It's up to you.
Yes, good morning, Chair Tofinelli, members of the board. Judy Hawkins, Human Resources and Risk Management Director. And I'm bringing before you today the agreement with Evergreen for a comprehensive classification and compensation study. We put out an RFP in May. The RFP was open for a month. It closed June 16th. We only had 1 response to the RFP, which the cost was beyond what our budget was. And so I talked with my colleagues in Human Resources and got the top agencies that they have recently used for the studies and reached out to those agencies. Many of them I did not hear back from. Several said, sorry, we're too busy right now. And then I did have one that did respond, and they are not able to start for about a year. And also the cost was quite high and beyond our budget. And so with working with our assistant CEO and our CEO, we decided to go ahead, meet, talk with Evergreen. The references were really well. Right now, they are working with Mariposa, and so a lot of the comparables that Mariposa has, we have, and so they believe they could complete this project in about 6 months. And so we have also made sure that
information that they give us, we will be bringing to the board and make sure that everybody's on the same page as far as comparables and those type of items for the compensation study. Can I answer any questions?
Any board questions? Yes, Supervisor Stopper.
Evergreen, yeah, has been working with Mariposa, and I can probably appreciate that most likely they're able to bring the price down based on the fact that they don't need to reciprocate a lot of the work that's already been done because they're a light county and they're doing comparables with light counties. But, you know, fast tracking down a 6-month timeline is beneficial in certain ways, but what about a desk audit and getting all our different, because, you know, this was part of the problem with working forward in our last time, is there's a lot of job descriptions and different seats throughout the county that aren't really up to snuff or comparable to other counties because they don't match, for one. Two, that they haven't been updated in certain areas for years so that they don't really explain what the job is. So moving forward on this and fast tracking on a 6-month timeline and not having that desk audit and everything else done, we're putting ourselves in a position where the comparables may not be right. And yeah, I just, that's a question. I mean,
Right. So within the scope of work, the classification study, and I have discussed this with them in depth, and the classification is the first piece of this. So we will be, we have identified the areas that are of concern, and they have a process for the questionnaire. Also in here, when we talk about the scope of work, they will be conducting interviews with the county administration office, human resources, department heads, supervisors, and employees. And so the classification study is the first piece, and they will be writing new job descriptions. And so that when we do the compensation piece, everything is very clean.
providing that we approve.
Correct.
Supervisor Garamendi.
I'm sure there's self-evidence, but we will consult with our labor unions as we go about this whole process.
Correct. And in fact, Nick talked with SEIU yesterday, and after we have the contract approved, we will be sitting down and going over the scope of work with them.
Thank you.
Any other board comments? Is there any public comments? Seeing none in the room. Robin, do we have any online?
There is none online.
No public comments? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. I'm open for a motion.
I'll move that we approve this. I appreciate the answer on the classification and everything and how the work will proceed, our actual compensation part. So thank you. With that, a motion.
A motion by Supervisor Stopper.
Second.
A second by Supervisor Hubbard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're going to take a break right now.
Thank
so
you.
we can set up for the next item. All right, we are back. We're on to item number 18. Excuse me, this is an ordinance from planning, conduct a public hearing, authorize a notice of exemption from CEQA, and adopt an ordinance amending the zoning of a 0.98 acre portion of APN 010-029-002 from general forest, GF, to general agricultural, A1. For Angelina Ramage, authorized summary publication and a brief property description and map of the reclassified property. Madeline, you are up.
Good morning. Oh, that is loud. Madeline Flandreau, Planner 3. I am presenting project number 2023-016, zoning amendment for Angela Ramage. Okay, why are you not working? Come on now. There we go. So the applicant is requesting a zoning amendment of a 0.98 acre portion of APN 0100290002 from general forest to general agriculture for consistency with the adjacent parcel in order to complete a lot line adjustment. The subject parcel, circled here in red, is located at 7908 Shad Road in Wilseyville, approximately 5 miles east of the intersection of Railroad Flat Road and Blue Mountain Road. The subject parcel is approximately 4.2 acres in size, currently developed with a single-family residence that's served by an on-site septic system and domestic well. The southern portion of the parcel proposed to be merged with the adjacent parcel is devoid of any structures. So a lot line adjustment application was received by the surveyor in May of 2022 and is awaiting approval of this zoning amendment to complete the process. The adjustment would take a 0.98 acre portion of the subject parcel and add it to the adjacent parcel, which is zoned general agriculture. If this portion is rezoned, the landowners can then adjust the boundary between the two parcels without any zoning conflicts. This is the general plan land use designation of the area. It is all resource production. That designation is suitable for ag operations and timber production, intended for parcels 40 to 160 acres in size. General forest and general agriculture are both compatible zones in the resource production land use designation, so the rezone would be consistent. This is the zoning of the area. I've put a star on the portion to be rezoned. This area of Wilseyville has a mix of zoning classifications, some large general forest parcels, some smaller parcels zoned general agriculture, parcels owned by Sierra Pacific Industries that are zoned timber production, and some public service and recreational. Although general agriculture and general forest are resource zones, they're really intended for much different land uses. The general forest zone is intended for commercial timber production, whereas the general agriculture zone is intended for farming and ranching practices. While the parcel size will remain non-conforming, there's no new parcel that's being created here and no non-conforming use that's being expanded. This area of Shad Road contains parcels obviously varying sizes, most of which are developed with single-family residences, and there are also larger parcels to the east owned by SPI, which are in timber production. The parcel is not located within any designated critical habitat for any protected species, and although there are some special status species within a 5-mile radius, the rezoning of an approximately 0.98 acre portion of the subject parcel in order to be merged with the adjacent parcel won't change the current primary residential use of either parcels and will have no effect on the species in the area. This application was routed for 30 days. We received no comments or concerns from the public or from county departments of public agencies. And this activity is covered by the common sense exemption that CEQA applies only to projects which have the potential for causing a significant effect on the environment. Rezoning the subject parcel from general forest to general agriculture will not result in more intensive permitted uses being allowed to occur due to the size of the parcel. The potential for residential development will not change, as one single-family residence and one accessory dwelling is already permitted per legal parcel of land in both the general forest and general agriculture zones, and there's already residents on the parcel. Any agricultural uses will be very much limited due to the size of the small parcel and the elevation of this area. The proposed zoning amendment was presented to the Planning Commission on June 22nd, 2023. During the public hearing, there were no comments from the public regarding the project, and all 5 commissioners voted in approval, recommending that the board approve the zoning amendment, finding the project exempt from CEQA. So in conclusion, staff finds the proposed rezone to general agriculture is consistent with the resource production land use designation. And while the parcel size will remain non-conforming, no new parcel is being created and no non-conforming use is being expanded. The proposed zoning amendment is consistent with both the general plan and zoning code. The current residential use of the property is permitted in the general agriculture zone, and the size of the parcel is really more beneficial to residential primary use of the land rather than a resource zone, which is intended for commercial timber production and related uses. A simultaneous lot line adjustment is being processed to reflect the change in ownership of the rezoned portion of the parcel. And the zoning will be consistent throughout the parcel and with the adjacent general agricultural zone parcel. And the applicant is here if you have any questions for her.
Is there any question from the board? This is the public hearing, so if the applicant would like to come up and say anything first, no? Then I'll open it to the public. Public has a right to speak. Anything they have to say. Is there any public member wish to say anything? Is there any member of the public online, Robin?
There is no member of the public online.
So we have no public comment and the applicant doesn't wish to speak. So I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Is there any questions? I do have one question, and I'm looking at the aerial map that you showed, and the lot line seems to be going over buildings on another lot. Is that an issue? Because I know there's several things that are going on right now. I understand, but I'm asking if it's actual, if it's right, if it's over. And maybe off, but. Okay, that one doesn't show it, okay. Yeah, it's attached, yeah.
So there's a lot of stretch there.
Okay. Okay.
Reality.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify that. All right. So I'll bring it back to the board. And is there a motion?
So move.
A motion by Supervisor Garamendi, second.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Stopper. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you all. Thank you, Madeline.
All right, we're going to take another break to prepare for the next item, item number 19. All right, we are back for action item number 19. This is from building to find an exempt from CEQA, find an exemption for CEQA, introduce and waive the first reading of an ordinance amending chapter 3.53, building department service fees of the Calaveras County Code, and 3, conduct a public hearing, and 4, authorize a summary of publication of the ordinance. So at this time, I will open the public hearing and I will go to Doug.
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Doug Oliver, Chief Building Official. Today we're bringing forward this ordinance because we're kind of special in the sense that our fee structure is in ordinance, which means occasionally as the economy changes, we have to go back and reevaluate and then bring to your board a new ordinance to update our fees, be consistent with the service models we have and the cost to provide that services. So the presentation here will also add a couple of other factors that are in line with the strategic plan. So I just want to kind of dive right into this and show you what we've got. So first I want to kind of cover why we update fees. We have to ensure proper cost recovery. This is a enterprise fund. We're not general fund. So any of the services that we provide, we have to collect the necessary revenue to fund those services. We are specific to those services. We don't, and I'll get into a little bit further later on, but essentially every individual service, we're accomplishing the revenue recovery to maintain those services. And we make sure that any of the services that have separate funding sources are not included in this type of fee structure. We also have to represent any adaptations we need to make in the workflow relative to new laws, new codes. If something comes down from the state that affects the work we do, that affects the time it takes, and that affects the cost to provide that service. We also reflect any added services, and you're going to see some added services, and I'll explain a little later. We weren't able in this ordinance to capture everything that was intended, and I'll get into that a little further as it relates to the cannabis stuff we'll be bringing forward later. And we demonstrate transparency about the services provided in exchange for the fees that are collected. So I want to make sure that the public is aware and we're fully transparent on the cost to provide services. This isn't a situation where the fees fluctuate wildly. These are based on averages and standards that we've set for the quality of the services we provide. Other reasons, fire prevention program that your board has directed our department to move forward with is nearing completion. We have the MOU draft to the fire district JPA, which we anticipate will be signed tomorrow, and I'll be bringing that forward to your board for signature hopefully by August 8th. And that means that we will officially have a fire prevention program, and once again, we have to collect revenue to cover the cost of providing those services countywide. So this is 1 week ahead of everything else, or 2 weeks ahead of everything else that's falling into place per your direction. And then there's also significant increases in the cost to provide our current services at the same level. So I want to kind of get into those briefly. So targets for our department, we need to make sure these fees are easy to understand. They need to coincide with the services provided. We need to accurately reflect the work performed. And we need to base these fees on reasonable time and quality standards for every step of our process. And when compared against projected workload, we need to be able to inform the county as to necessary staffing levels each step of the process. We need to easily adjust at regular intervals based on the workload. We need to also essentially we're saying we need to be transparent about what we're doing and the costs for what we're doing. The current building services need to be, the fees need to be updated because we have had increases in costs across the board. We have increased technology costs. We have increased costs due to salaries and benefits. We have 87 costs that have gone up. And yeah, in the last 3 years, it starts to add up. Our purpose when we adopted this fee structure 3 years ago was to bring something to your board every 3 to 5 years to adjust. Because what we end up doing is, in the process of setting up our fees, there's always going to be annual increases of cost. And we want to set it up to where we can provide this service over a period of 3 to 5 years before we have to make significant changes, but nothing is going to cripple the system. We make incremental changes, but I didn't want to bring something to your board every year at every budget, which is a legitimate business practice, and other counties do that. But for smaller rural communities, it just didn't seem to make a lot of sense to do that work every single year and bring back something to your board tied directly to our budget every year. So we're still shooting on that 3 to 5 year mark. Fire prevention, there's a lot of stuff that if the JPA and your board signs this MOU, there's a lot of stuff contained in state law that everyone's doing at various levels statewide. We will be unifying 9 districts into one program, and we need to make sure that we're covering those costs. So a lot of what this fee study is that fee structure, which is similar to other neighboring fee structures. And in code compliance, we are breaking them out separately so that we can demonstrate to your board that you have separate costs relative to code compliance that in no way are mingled with the rest of the services we provide, and they are general fund. So I've provided you a separate breakout of those cost recovery measures. And I'll mention briefly later about the expectations on cost recovery, because I understand code compliance is really not a model that you expect to get full cost recovery on. It's just not a working model to do that. If you're going to show compassion and flexibility, if your goal is compliance, your goal shouldn't be full cost recovery in a code compliance model. So we'll get into that a little bit deeper later. So the line, the building department performs several service types. Essentially, the fees can't overlap. We can't double dip in any sense. No, we should not be recovering the cost to provide services twice. We have to show that so for instance, code compliance, in no way can we charge a fee for code compliance on a building permit. Likewise, we shouldn't be charging any building related services on a code compliance case. So that breaks out also the amount of staff time. If you have one staff member that performs functions in both categories, we have to be able to split that out and say, okay, half of the cost to provide that individual goes this way, the other half goes this way based on a time study. So what you're seeing here is that breakdown of cost. And I just kind of covered it here. That additional slide, I'm beating my own slides, so bear with me. Okay, so the fees established in this ordinance can be modified by the level of cost recovery the board wishes the department to achieve. Right now, we're shooting for 100% cost recovery. Because we're enterprise fund, we should be shooting for cost recovery and maintaining a certain amount of reserve fund, because the services that we perform, they're not a constant. Inspections ramp up during the spring and summer, start tailing off in the fall traditionally, while plan review generally starts ramping up in the fall, travels through the winter, so that the contractors and builders have plans approved in the spring when the snow melts and they're ready to build. So our reserve fund is meant to supplement in low times and make sure we have staffing that was paid for under the permit. So if we go through plan review, we charge the fee, we issue the permit, but the inspections aren't done yet and revenue drops off. We want to make sure that we can put in enough revenue from reserves over the span of an economic cycle to make sure we provide the services that the community paid for. So if we move to a system where we go to less than 100% recovery for building services or fire services for that matter, what you find is that we have to empty our reserves and ask for general fund money if there's ever a significant downturn. And that's something that we really don't want to be able to do. We want to be separate from the general fund and be able to maintain these services as a constant. Okay, so by establishing the fees and ordinance, we're basing them on actual performance measures, and we are making it publicly available at all times without having to go searching. The problem we had prior to the first adoption of this ordinance was that it was founded by resolution. It's not on our website, so to speak. People have to ask for it. We have to go digging for it. And if it sits there for 10, 15 years, it gets lost to time. I prefer the opportunity to have it in ordinance where anyone can just look up the code section on Muni Code or online and find it. So it just seems like a better governmental transparency method to have it in ordinance, which is why we're continuing to do that. The fire prevention program, which is the bulk of the changes we have, is envisioned to take the duties that are currently distributed to all 9 fire districts, unify them, and make sure that they're being reported in a unified manner to the state as it pertains to mandatory inspections. So you may recall a few years back, the ghost ship fire cast a lot of light on mandatory inspections and proper enforcement. There are several significant occupancy types that require annual inspection. Some of them require every 2 years, and they're required now to be reported to the State Fire Marshal's office. Those are currently being handled by individual fire districts, along with the basic fire code operational and construction permits for fire safety in hazardous business uses like propane storage, hot work, welding, I would say blacksmithing. There's only maybe 2 in the county, but you get the idea. In a flammable environment like our county, we need to make sure that sparks aren't being thrown in an unsafe location, that chemicals are being stored appropriately, that sort of thing. And so currently, as the fire chiefs are managing their budgets, they have a conundrum. When the money doesn't come in, the revenue doesn't come in, do I staff the engine or do I staff fire prevention? It's always a balancing act. This way of unifying this gives them the opportunity to put the resources they need into the fire protection while we manage the fire prevention. And the hope with this is that we have a far better opportunity to educate the public on fire prevention while they're able to enhance, maintain the current fire attack programs that they have. But there is a cost. And so each of these service fees are based on the estimated time required to do those services based on the time studies that we've done. This assumes, of course, that the Board of Supervisors will sign an agreement with the district JPA in 2 weeks. And the assumptions are also reflected against the neighboring counties, which we'll get into in a second here. If we adopt this ordinance and your board does not sign the agreement, it doesn't invalidate the fees. It just, we don't collect them. They're there in case we come up with another schedule or another program that meets your needs. Those fees will be there because the time to do the work is still the same. So we're not in any way creating an issue by having a fee structure available ahead of the program. It's essentially we're front loading for success here. Okay, and then to accurately capture costs for code compliance, these fees that we're presenting to you for code compliance are based on case management of violations up to and through the citation period. It does not include the abatement cost, because once again, we can't bill you for a projected cost that's not going to be there. So, and consequently, we also can't charge you for an abatement cost and then charge you again if we go out and do the work. And so there should be no way to overlap any fee in an individual service. The code compliance fees as they are assume that once we get the citation, here's the fee for carrying it through to us typing that citation and sending it. When the clock runs out on the citation and we have to decide to abate, that fee is separate. The rest of those abatement costs are tracked hourly and by the cost to provide services for a contractor for demolition, that sort of thing. And then that's paired out in an invoice to the customer to show, here's what happened up to the citation, here's what happened after the citation. So per your guidance in our last discussion over code compliance, we are moving forward with the extension of time with the understanding that the customer can say, I admit I have a violation, I need another 3 weeks. And we say, okay, we're going to give you that 3 weeks or we're going to give you 4 weeks, but we do need to pay those costs to maintain this case up to this point. So you have to pay the citation fee, but we're going to let you run without going to abatement, and we're going to let you we're going to monitor your compliance. So we are moving forward with that. I threw myself off. I read the next line and I'd already said it, so I'm going to keep going. So. Okay, so where did we start in this? What we did was we looked at our previous 2019 time motion studies, compared it against the work we have now to see what changes there are, make adjustments to the time as needed based on the new service models. Perform time motion studies on the fire prevention services. You may have noticed that we have a current fire inspector who has been out there working with the fire districts. He has been doing these inspections, but he hasn't been doing them as the fire marshal or as the fire chief. He has been doing them as a county employee, figuring out exactly how long it's going to take in this county to do the work, next to that fire district representative, and giving the information to them to use moving forward. So at each step of the process, we've been working with the fire district. When they've reported their information to the state, he's been working on those documents and working on the uploads to the state. He's been doing the occupancy inspections with the fire marshals or fire chiefs that are out there currently, so that he had a good understanding of what it's going to take at each step in each one of these job duties. So that's where we got the basic time in our workload analysis for the proposed fire fees, him actually going out there for the last 6 months and doing the work side by side with the fire departments. And then we also performed, well, we applied the current costs to provide services. You'll notice that the total value to recover cost in this analysis is higher than the previous because of the added staffing for fire prevention, also because of the increase in staffing costs, as mentioned before. So we've also included in this a comparison of the fire district fees or the fire department fees in neighboring counties against what we're proposing on some of the more common inspection types. Some of the data that we use in this study is not necessarily a time motion study, but a basic standard of how we do services and how long they should take. We want to make sure that we don't overburden the system or drag things out or in any way show any perception that, well, lack of a better term, we're not sandbagging the customer here. We have a time and quality standard on many of our services, and in the absence of data about how long it has taken in the past, if we know we're moving forward and we should be streamlining things and it's only supposed to take 15 minutes, it's a management issue if it's coming in over 15 minutes. I'm billing the customer for 15. And if I have an issue with that, that's a training and management thing. So building inspections, you'll notice we have time standards on how long it should take. 15 minutes for a water heater. It should take 90 minutes for a shear inspection on the average size home. Those are part of the expectation of the employee when they're doing the work, and that gives me a reasonable expectation of how many people I need. So plan review time standards are based on the current time frames for the staffing that I have and what the code requires me to check on those plans in order to approve it and get it out the door. And staffing hours based on specific services are generated by subtracting the total hours spent by the employee on other tasks. So you got 2080 hours as a total for FTE. But for me to know how many people I need to do the job, I have to back out the things they're not present to do the job for. For instance, we have to remove the hours spent in training, because if I'm including those hours, I have a bad picture of how many people I need. For instance, also how much sick time do they have? How much vacation time? If I base the amount of work on 2080 hours, and then they take all of that time, personal time and training time, I'm saying I need less people than I actually do. You know, if I say I can accomplish this with 3 inspectors and on any given period, I've got 2 of them out because they're at training or on vacation, I'm in trouble. So the slide, one of the slides further on will show how we take out those, not for anything more than tracking how many people are necessary. What's removed from the study is staff time to undertake tasks that are through other funding sources, and the cost of performing separately funded tasks such as vehicle abatement. That's a separate fund source. So the work performed in that's taken out. The cost to provide service is taken out of this presentation and this fee structure. In addition, any cannabis control, that's separate funding. That is not reflected in the totals that I presented to you. So as mentioned before, here's our basic time standards, and these are maintainable. We do have, your board is aware that we've had some staffing challenges getting trained inspectors involved in the program. We do have new inspectors. They are being trained, but this is the standard. This is their expectation coming out of probation, that they can meet these time standards, and they're fully aware of that. And currently, these probationary inspectors are doing one heck of a job. So I'm pretty impressed with what we got right now. I saw no reason to change these standards whatsoever moving forward. Permit processing times have remained fairly constant because in response to increases in what we're required to look at in the code, we've also streamlined the program a bit. So we've taken things down to more automated functions, and that has caused these numbers to maintain fair, overall pretty steady. In our time review standards, these are the estimated timeframes on average to perform. And I will note to the board that 3 years ago, when we brought this forward, this was the expectation. We weren't meeting this expectation. It was, if we made changes, this is what we're going to build a customer, and this is the program we're going to provide. At that time, we had about a 12-week turnaround on plan review. We currently are at about 5 to 6 weeks. So we have not quite hit the total standard on amount of time to the time to target on the customer side, but we have cut that number down significantly. And with the staffing we have, with additional training, we will be able to meet those standards in hopefully within the next year consistently. So I'm very hopeful, and staff's done a very good job of streamlining and mastering their skills so that we can get those timeframes down. Now, this is the fee comparison that we did with our neighboring counties based on the fire fees that we are proposing to your board. You'll notice that our direct neighbors, we have some differences in cost across the board here. Our direct neighbor, Tuolumne County, we're pretty consistent with most of it as far as coming in under or very close. I will make a note that Tuolumne County 3 weeks ago did adjust all of their fees up 11%. We're still pretty well in the ballpark there. I will point out that there is a noticeable increase in cost on schools on our fee structure based on others. Talking with the expert in the field, our fire inspector is an annuitant from Palo Alto, has 30 years of experience in fire prevention. In talking with him, the big difference on that cost really is that in some of the larger jurisdictions, they don't charge the entire fee for the entire school. They have a fee for a component of the school, and then they have a separate breakout, for instance, for the gymnasium, which is an assembly building, which is a separate required mandated inspection. Rather than combine them, they separate it out and say, here's your fee for the school and here's your fee for the gymnasium. In addition, the primary elements of the school being important, such as the fire alarm system, the riser room and the sprinkler equipment, that sort of thing. Some jurisdictions focus on those elements. Our current fire prevention experts in our local districts, they look at all of the fire safety items throughout a school in their districts. And so we're emulating their needs for what they expect as far as fire safety in schools, which may be a higher standard than other counties and cities. If there's any concern over that fee, we can always modify it. Your board is free to change any of these, and we can do additional time studies on them as you see fit. Currently, with the fire districts and the schools that they're inspecting, we're putting in at least 2.5 hours of inspection on those schools, not counting drive time, not counting re-inspections on items that we have found out there, which also prompts another hour to an hour and a half of re-inspect and drive time. The 614 seems appropriate to capture cost, but if your board determines that this is needs to be modified, we're free to make those changes. Okay, so we collected all the data and we threw them into our work time, cost, and revenue analysis spreadsheet, or the analysis spreadsheet. it takes every bit of data and it throws it in there to tell us how many people we probably should have to balance out the workload. And based on that, what's the cost to provide the service? And then generates an hourly rate that we can apply to each of those permits based on the total amount of hours worked to provide that service. And it does allow for some flexibility on individual fee types. For instance, your board has directed us to reduce and streamline ag permitting. And so we've included a separate fee for that, where we have streamlined the program, removed the plan review fee from that. You'll see that as a lower fee for streamlined permits in that regard. And once again, these are our recommendations. This is what we are recommending in order to balance our budget heading into final budget. This is recommendations in order to maintain the staffing levels that are giving us the successes we have on the ability to provide inspections within 24 hours, to reduce the plan review time and the wait time for customers, and to in addition, innovate, maintain and enhance our current technology and improve the streamlining moving forward, improve online access to the customers. In fact, and in addition, in downturn, when you are using your reserve funds, you have to be able to replenish those. And so we have to budget to replenish those in good years. This entire program functions based on the recommendations here, but your board may decide any or all of these fees may be adjusted, and then we would compensate. We would go back and look at the bottom line and make any adjustments as needed. And with that, is there any questions?
Supervisor Stopper, you had questions?
Thank you.
Supervisor Hubbard?
Yes, I was just curious, how do you factor in travel time? I didn't see sort of a separate line item for that. How do you factor that in?
So we did an initial fee study where every inspector and every code compliance officer tracked their routes and how much time it took to drive to each location within a route. Not necessarily, and definitely not from the office to each separate location. They all planned a route, and then we averaged the time on every one of those routes between targets to get a basic amount of time per stop. So it worked out that code compliance was about 17 minutes. If you planned a route of 8 stops, it may be, and based on our basic time, basic process of go to your furthest site first, work your way back to the office so that at the end of the day, you got a short trip back. You may end up with, an hour-long trip to the first stop, but every other stop is 5 or 10 minutes to get to the next stop. So it's same process for the building inspectors, and we averaged them out about I believe it was about 17 minutes for drive. For code compliance, about 14 and a half, 15 minutes for a building inspector to plan their route and execute that.
Thank you.
Supervisor Stopper?
So cost recovery, not general fund department. So even without tracking your time of driving back and forth, there's office time that's done on certain things that don't apply to specifically a permit, but overall the processing of permits in general, like certain days of the week when you're doing training. And that cost has to get spread over all this because they're training to be able to facilitate the permits, correct?
Correct.
But during that time, is the building department completely closed down?
Negative.
Never. So there's always someone at the desk to be able to respond to certain things during your training day.
Correct. Well, okay. Wednesdays from noon to 4, we have staff training and process training. We have a lot of new staff members, and we are currently maintaining that downtime. We do schedule appointments during that time, and the building inspectors are out in the field doing their inspections during that time. The building inspectors have a separate training schedule that keeps them out, being able to go out and do the inspections. But the front counter does shut down except for appointments on Wednesdays.
Right.
From noon to 4.
Appointments, but someone coming in to get a business license isn't able to make it to the counter because they don't know it's shut down because they're sent from one office to the other when they're signing up for
business licenses.
Correct. However, if your board
So they-
wishes, I can end that program.
I'm not wanting you to end the training program, Doug. What I'm saying is scheduling. You don't need to have every person in the training program. You might have one person that's already trained in a certain area, depending on, overall how many new people we have at, let's say, the front desk during that time. But you have someone that may be trained in a certain area that you could have work the front desk and be able to facilitate the small things during that time, so you have someone there to answer. I mean, this isn't just the building department. This happens in other departments. Overall, it's, we as a county are open during the week. And this part of the process, I get complaints from people all the time, going to different departments that close down for either a day or part of a day for training purposes, when there's the ability to be able to function one person or another to the front desk to at least take a note, so then they have a face when the public's in during business hours. And I think, this goes not directly to this, but that's something that's brought up consistently. And I think that with many of the departments, it's become a real problem with a lot of people in the county. And the training is crucial, and I do get that.
And this can be worked out. I mean, this has been a 3-year process of this standard being in place, because we had so much we had to do to get modernized, that it was necessary to do that. I'm happy to, if your board wishes, I'm happy to retool how we provide training to our staff and keep the doors open for that 4-hour period. I would recommend that at least once a month that we have some downtime to coordinate with other departments, for instance, and pull everybody together for critical items. But I do concur with you that that is a problem, and I hear complaints, because we're not the only county that does this. So and I hear complaints from our neighboring counties too that are closed 2 days a week solid. It's not good. It's not ideal customer service to not have access for any period of time during normal business hours. So I understand your frustration.
And it's a tough juggle, and you're absolutely right about being able to coordinate with other departments and having everybody in on a conversation that's going to be had once, that's kind of crucial. But, for example, someone from Contra Costa County that's starting up a business up here, they're building their home at the same time. They drive all the way up here on a day in the middle of the week when we have our business hours open, and they're here during that amount of time, and they go to file their paperwork and they're told, hey, sorry, this department or this department's closed. You'll have to come back on the day when they're open in the middle of the week. And they just drove 3 hours or 2 hours.
I've already got a process in my mind. I can end that right now if your board wishes for me to change this. I'm happy to make the adjustments.
I'm over beating the dead horse at this point about the issue, so I get it, and I appreciate you being that. So I'll get back to the fees.
Very good.
Glad you explained the school fee, and that was something that really popped out to me. But you also have a fee here for assemblies, and you said that kind of, with the schools, that kind of gets enveloped into the Calaveras County one because it's done it all at once.
Right.
So they don't, you got 270, well, let me get my glasses on. $271 for assemblies is enveloped in that 614.
Correct.
Okay. And then some of these are like the double dot for Amber County means the hour average or the per hour charge. So that could develop into something, depending on how much time they spend there and how many issues there are.
Yeah, it
could be exponentially more or just slightly less. But okay, I get that. But, when it comes to our schools and everything, safety is first. So I can appreciate the amount of time our fire departments spend with you and our fire marshal and everyone else to get those as safe as possible. But at the same time, every time we can help out our schools, because honestly, the dollar doesn't stretch far enough for education, in my opinion, these days, and they are trying to get things up to par. They're all behind on infrastructure and, maintenance for these schools. I personally am one that's willing to consider, working with the schools to be able to get more dollars that goes towards education as opposed to the cost of infrastructure going in.
And this appears to be a good candidate for that. I mean, your board had directed to make modifications to the water heater permit fee to keep that at a lower fee than what we'd normally charge on an over-the-counter permit to encourage people to comply for fire prevention reasons. This is another good candidate for your board if you wish to essentially, for lack of a better term, subsidize it and say lower that fee to something that is similar to what we're seeing, and perhaps lowering it to maybe placer counties just to make sure we recover some costs. So,
And overall, I don't see this part, I mean, putting a huge dent in the cost recovery because the schools are minimal.
We only have
in the
6 of them.
overall. Yeah, there's only, I mean, on average per year, there's only 6 permits or whatever going through. So, I mean, overall, this wouldn't be a huge lift by the board, in helping out when it comes to fees. That's just one of the things. I mean, I could go through everything else, but it's like these numbers on the lower pages. Takes time.
agreed.
You're the one that did the work. I can appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other board questions? Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you. I agree with Ben's point about the schools. I mean, it's not a heavy lift for us and it carries some symbolic weight as well, supporting education. So if we want to sharpen a pencil on that, I think that's a good idea, Supervisor Stopper. We have, one of the board priorities is creating more housing in our county. I know we all talk about that all the time. Will this help that process? This new fee structure, do you think it will make it better or slow it down? Since that's one of our priorities, I just want to see how it aligns with our goals.
I don't understand, well, I don't anticipate it doing any harm or good. Building permit fees are some of the lowest fees that are part of the package of developing a home on a parcel. You're going to spend around $15,000 in school fees and road improvement fees and other development fees, and the $4,000 for a building permit is a small portion of that. And compared to neighboring counties where there's a lot of home development, generally the cost to provide services is also significantly higher because of the wages and benefits in those regions, which is why I keep losing building inspectors. They want to work for a place with higher pay, but that means their permit fees are higher. So our region is still comparatively lower on the permit fees, and we're still able to provide equivalent or better service. And that's not to say that we aren't continuing to move forward to streamline and make the service move faster. Our recognition is that we understand that the fee is going to go up, but what can we provide to make it easier, such as a pre-approved plan program that your board has green-lighted that we're nearing completion on. That's going to remove the plan review fee, and that's going to be noticeable. That's going to encourage people to want to comply, come in and get the permit, especially where we're doing building out areas, for instance, the Butte Fire Scar. The reduced fee for ag buildings because we streamlined that program. So I don't anticipate this particular fee study is going to do any harm or good. What does do good is giving the customer better service in response for this.
That would go to the reduction in time and time use analysis. that you
Correct.
Earlier in this. Thank you very much.
Any other board questions?
I do. Going off the what Jack just said, I am a little worried about the fee schedule and encouraging more workforce housing. A lot of the development that is happening in District 4 happened because of reduction of building fees to enhance workforce housing. So if the time to meet the housing requirement for the state. And so I'm supportive of what you are doing, but as we move forward with trying to bring more housing into the county, I would like to see some more options that would encourage and I don't mean one-offs, I mean like bulk housing developments to help cater to those demographics that we're required to meet with the state of California and help with the developers wanting to do that rather than, the custom home buildings and things like that.
But you're speaking right to the core of the discussion that the Housing Resources Committee is having currently. If it makes you feel better in those meetings, the developers and program managers in those discussions have made it clear that the building permit fee is not the issue. It's the ability to mobilize quickly, find the appropriate lots, and be able to get a permit processed quickly. That's what's driving the cost. So like in any development where you have to go through the entire process of subdivision, that is a huge cost. We're focusing our sites now on being able to showcase lots and areas that are already developed that you can easily just come in and get building permits for that are already zoned, already approved. They just need the permits in hand, and then give them a program that lets them master plan quickly and get started. And there's also legislation coming down the pike that's supposed to be helping as well. So I'll keep your board informed on that. But you're right on target with what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, thank you. That makes me feel better.
May I follow up on that? Because, any type of development that's going in where there would be workforce housing. So exactly what Doug said, plus having the pre-developed area, which means having the proper infrastructure in for water, sewer, and everything else, which is our major hurdle throughout the county. We can talk all day about someone wanting to invest into the county, but if we don't have those major parts of infrastructure, that it's a full stop for everything going forward. With that, if we have the ability, even if these fees are set up as they are, to do a development agreement on a specific project where if they're going to put in workforce housing, we could decide as a board that, look, you're putting in this much workforce housing, we support that, you're making our numbers work better for the state or the county, and we can reduce this amount of the permit fees on this project because you're helping the county out at the same time. Is that not correct?
Absolutely.
So we can do development agreements and be able to do that separately from this fee structure at the same time.
Whenever there's a workforce housing opportunity, such as, let's say, Habitat for Humanity is a good example. They'll buy a small subdivision and they'll get everything in place, and they'll come forward and say, okay, this is all going to be workforce housing. We want a reduction or waiver of building permit fees, and then I would bring that to your board. If it's already, if it's a development in process through the planning department, it could be part of a development agreement. So there's many different ways to handle that scenario, and your will, my hands. If you're directing me to do that, then I'm bringing this to you.
There are tools in place, yes.
Are there any other questions?
I do have a couple questions. And just on that line, the permit fee for multifamily or one or two family residence is going up $1,000. According to this, from 3,966 to 4,974. So there's a significant increase for one and two family home. I'm looking at the very last part where you have the fee, the old fees and the new fees.
Let me look it up here.
Item number 7, one and two family residence.
There we go.
It's on page
Okay, I got it right here.
316.
Thank you.
So that's a significant increase, whether, if I own a lot and I want to build a home on it, whether it's workforce or not workforce, still, the amount has gone up quite significantly,
Correct. And
25% at least.
what we're looking at is when you have an hourly rate that goes up a percentage, if you have the same amount of time, but you increase the hourly rate by $20 applied to, 20 hours, it ends up being significant. But that's not to say that, and this is what we see in most cases when you have a subdivision that's going in. They do the master plan and cut that in half. They spend that fee once, they put that plan on file, and then every permit thereafter is half the cost. Going back to the item. Where is it here?
But if I'm a contractor and I have a couple lots and I want to build a home and sell that, and it's a workforce home, I'm still paying an increased fee here versus a contractor or a developer that's going to buy a huge lot of land and put in a number of homes. And I'm just pointing it out, so there is some dissimilarities here that could happen. And a significant increase just in that. Multifamily residence, which would be condos or apartment houses, has gone up $2,000. And I'm not saying it doesn't reflect what time it takes you to go through those plans. Obviously, you've done the research and you guys done the analysis on it. That's the cost increase on it. But it is significant.
It is. I agree.
Yeah. So, the other question I have is on the inspection fees. Does that cover all costs as far as fuel, vehicles, maintenance of vehicles?
Yes.
So that's included in it. You guys ran that analysis on the fuel and everything?
By establishing the entire cost to provide these services, we are rolling in the amount of power it takes to keep the lights on, the computers running, every pencil, every piece of paper. It's the entire program for these particular services. That's what's collected as far as the cost to provide service.
So so it wasn't just hourly wages, it was, everything was.
It was
I want to make sure
everything.
that we're, because we didn't talk, it wasn't brought up, but I want to make sure that everybody understands that those reflect those added costs.
I'm not an inspector on that list, but I am a cost to maintain this system and keep things. So everything that goes into me and my computer and my vehicle and my gas is distributed across all these fees as well.
All right. All right, this is a public hearing, so I will open it up to public. Is there any public comments on this item? Mr. Segalia.
I'm Savannah Taxpayer Association. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on this. And I'm really amazed at the amount of work you've done. It's incredible. I think the bottom line on housing expense, it doesn't make much difference whether it's workforce housing or low-income housing or housing itself. It all relates to the cost of a building. And one aspect is the availability of land. This means enough land with appropriate zoning to be able to build them. Another thing that's involved is are we using the latest technology and keeping our costs lower? One example could be we're now requiring residential homes to have commercial fire extinguishers, which are very expensive. I don't know what percentage more that a builder will pay to put that in, but I have a suspicion it's pretty high. There is an alternative that's being used successfully. It's a helium-type fire extinguisher. They use it in airplanes or in places where they have computers, where water damage would be tremendous if they had commercial fire extinguishers. And the helium is also safe for human beings. You can breathe it without hurt you. And so one thing that could be done, along the lines that you're already doing, is do a little bit of study on technology and to look at all the things that are involved with the housing. So supply of land, a complexity of the building permit process. Is it too complex? Do we need all the complexity? And a lot of this comes from the state, but that's okay. We can lobby the state to try to bring more common sense into these regulations, because these regulations are hurting our market, hurting our housing market. And there's no reason why our elected representatives can't stand up for the people and their property rights and do what's necessary in lobbying with the state and even the federal government to try to get more common sense into it. Anyway, there is a bright side, and perhaps studying technology could be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Is there any other public comment in the room? Seeing none, or is there, Robin, we have any online?
There is none online.
So, no further public comment. I will close the public hearing and I will bring it back to the board. Is there any further discussion on this item from the board members? If not, I'm open for a motion.
So moved with the consideration of, working with the schools on the, on the cost for their permit.
In order to move this forward, I would recommend that your board direct me as to a reasonable price for this fee so that I can bring you the ordinance with that fee in place.
Okay, so let me reel back my motion to start with, and we should probably have that discussion and whether there's appetite by the rest of the board to move in that direction. Is that correct, council?
Yes, because this is an ordinance and this is the introduction and the first reading, we would just want something specific for what comes back.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Since that's happening and we're gonna have that discussion, do I need to reopen the public hearing for any public comments on anything that we're discussing?
I don't know that you need to. I mean, you can certainly see if there's any public comment on that before the board takes a vote.
With he said about 6 a year, want to waive it 100%. It's only going to be like a $3,600 loss overall from the county. Maybe $4,000 loss overall.
I could also recommend that maybe we just make it hourly rate. The easier they are to get inspected, the less they have to pay. The more in compliance they are, the less time we have to spend. It might be an incentive to, work with us to make sure things are dialed when we get there.
Overall, $4,000 cost.
I think Supervisor Stopper might be onto something. It's about safety for our kids, school. I'll go with you on that, Ben.
Wow.
0.
We would have to find a public benefit on that one. from the council.
Yeah, I just want to make sure it's clear. So the proposal is to waive the fees for the schools altogether.
I mean, I'm not
It's not.
against it, but, when we start doing that, so we're including public schools, we've got multiple.
It would be any school that we're performing these mandated inspections on.
Education overall is a benefit.
That's absolutely a policy call that the board can make. I agree, with a public benefit finding, which it can make. I just want to make sure it's clear.
Education
in terms of
for future,
direction.
yes. Simple as that. I find a public benefit in it.
This is just for the fire. Not any future building.
Like just a fire prevention fee for school inspections.
Yeah.
I'll entertain it to be brought back for consideration.
Well, this ordinance, once it's written, is going to come back to us anyway.
Right.
And then it takes 30 days, a second reading goes 30 days. So I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Thank you. It's.
Is there any public comment on that? Is there any online?
There is none online, no.
Okay, back to the board.
I would say, just sorry, one small clarification. You're absolutely correct, Supervisor Toffenelli. It comes back for a second reading and adoption, and then it's actually 60 days on this
60
type
days.
of ordinance before it takes it back.
So, I'll make the motion based on that one amendment on the fire fee for the schools to be at 0.
Inspection.
Fire inspection.
And that's annually. Annually.
I'll second.
A motion by Supervisor Stopper, second by Hubbard. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
We'll give it Couple minutes for Doug. And we'll come back for supervisor announcements. Okay. We are back for a final item on our agenda today is supervisor announcements in compliance with Government Code 53232.3D. Board members shall provide brief reports on any meetings attended at the expense of the local agency and may make other announcements or report out. I'll start with Supervisor Stopper.
Thank you, Supervisor Toffenelli. I will reserve for next meeting any reporting out I have, but I would like the board to entertain a statement by the board as a whole on any anti-Semitic or hate rhetoric going around, that we do not support those type of things, that we want to keep a positive message for our community as a whole that's all inclusive.
I think the possibility is that we should bring something back, have maybe county council prepare something for us, and we can have a discussion and bring it back at our next board meeting.
I can absolutely work with the CEO on that.
Can you do? Teresa, and you can work on something?
I would appreciate that.
Yes, we're happy to bring back a statement from the board.
Okay. We will look for that at our next meeting, which is August 8th. Okay, Supervisor Pollendorf. Ms. Muhammad.
The only announcement I have is the Fund Bureau asked me to let the board know that they will be having their annual dinner August 20th at Bray Station, and we're all invited.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank Supervisor Stopper and the Chair for entertaining the opportunity to bring back a statement condemning hate speech and promoting good speech. And thank you for taking that on. So thank you guys very much. Golden State Connect Authority is really getting cooking. We're getting our detailed maps together. We will present to this board in August about sort of how these polygons, I'm sorry, I'm talking inside shop here, how we're designing these programs around Calaveras County. This is a big initiative statewide, so I will probably be, or staff will be working with each of you to make sure that you understand sort of how this process is developing in our county, how it will impact your individual districts as it goes along. So with that, Mr. Chair, I have nothing else to report, but thank you both very much.
You're welcome. Supervisor Huberty.
I would also like to say thank you, Supervisor Stopper. I know both of our districts have been targets of that type of hate, and there is no room for that in our communities. I'd also like to say that I attended as an alternate for Chair Toffenelli, the Calaveras Public Power Agency meeting on Wednesday, the 19th. I also attended yesterday, the 24th, the Central Sierra Child Support Agency meeting, just to let everybody know that August is Child Support Month. I also attended the homecoming in the park, the Murphy's homecoming in the park, and was thrown in the Murphy's pokey. I had one person who tried to bail me out a little bit, and I ended up having to bail myself out. So, yeah, that was really successful. Also, just saying that I went to the opening of the Bear Valley Music Festival and the Hank Williams concert last week in Murphy's, and it's just amazing that we have this type of talent and things that go on in our community that are just really top notch. So, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Huberty. And yes, I appreciate you attending for me. I was out of town, and yesterday I was traveling, so I wasn't able to make the Child Support Agency. So other than that, I have nothing else to announce. CEO Teresa Hitchcock.
I have nothing to announce at this time.
Sarah? County Council? No? You're good? Robin? All right, then. We will stand adjourned.